The Austin GP couldn't come sooner, and although the championship battle is already done and dusted, there are many battles that we're going to witness on the horizon, with many of them being of a survival nature. With a lot of drama brewing in Red Bull, Williams and Aston Martin, these three teams will have a very difficult time determining whether one of their respective drivers deserves their seat for the foreseeable future, and to add salt to the wound, some of them are under contractual obligations in 2024. Austin seems to be one of the last venues to which these drivers can prove their worth, and if they don't, some of them might receive gruesome news after the first race of the triple header. So which drivers are at huge risk during the Austin GP, and moreover, what are the changes that it will imply for the respective teams? Let's start this video with the loudest rumour in the paddock, Sergio Perez and his future with Red Bull. According to Helmut Marko, the future of the veteran driver is not going to be discussed prior to the Mexican GP ending, which is his home race, and out of respect, the team doesn't want to have any negative influence over the reputation of the Mexican driver. Be that as it may, it doesn't mean that they're not ready to throw him under the bus now that the new leadership in Red Bull is demanding Horner to have larger responsibilities in both Red Bull and AlphaTauri. The Brit might actually consider the 2024 promotion of Ricciardo in Red Bull just to give Lawson his well-deserved seat in AlphaTauri for the upcoming campaign, effectively preparing him for the Red Bull venture. Even Horner himself said that Perez is in a crisis, and in order for him to be considered out of it, he would have to keep second place in the Drivers' Championship, a mission that the 33-year-old is very much struggling to complete right now because he only has 30 points of difference ahead of Hamilton. For things to be worse than Perez, the F1 caravan is currently heading into a triple header, and two of these three races are sprint venues, which are events on which Perez has definitely struggled a lot throughout the 2023 season. The only reason why the lead is sitting at 30 points is the fact that Hamilton suffered an incident during the Qatar GP in Turn 1 with his teammate Russell in a race that Perez started from the back of the grid, and after barely finishing P10 with two 5-second penalties, it was definitely a questionable performance from the second Red Bull driver. Elaborating on his future, Horner wasn't shy of words as the Brit went on to say, "I think we really need to sit down with Checo because we know what he's capable of and he's not hitting that form at the moment. We desperately need him to find that form to keep this second place in the championship. The other teams are working as a pair. Sometimes that becomes a bit confrontational, as we saw in Qatar with Hamilton and Russell. We really need Checo to get into that window because it's not this year so much, but certainly next year we need him to be firing on all cylinders." It's obvious that Red Bull's fears are based on the fact that we've seen the strides that McLaren has made over 2023, and with Horner implying that Mercedes will be back in a fighting mood from 2024 onwards, it's safe to assume that we're going to witness a lot of competition in the upcoming campaign, something that prompts Red Bull to seek out another competitive driver alongside Verstappen. Elaborating on this, Horner said that Red Bull is currently the only team to not have a driver pairing like their rivals in McLaren, Ferrari and Mercedes, and that's a luxury the team might not be able to afford in 2024. Therefore, Perez's future hangs by a thread in the remainder of the calendar, with Austin being the first venue that he'd have to prove that the second seat in Red Bull would be secured from his side in 2024. Obviously, he'll have a couple more chances in 2023, but as we're moving towards a triple header, the momentum that Perez will gain in Austin will definitely translate to the next two races in Mexico and Brazil, which is super important for his P2 battle in the Drivers' Championship. Another driver to whom we should pay a lot of attention right now is the home hero in Austin, Logan Sargeant. The USA public has been longing for a driver to represent their flag in the sport ever since Alexander Rossi left back in 2016, but it seems like Sargeant's future is not that secured in the sport, let alone Williams. As of now, Sargeant is the only driver on the grid who hasn't scored a single point but has participated at all venues, meaning that his seat is definitely in danger, considering the fact that his teammate Albon is single-handedly keeping Williams in that 7th spot in the Constructors' Championship, which is a massive improvement compared to where they finished last year, P10. Even though Albon backed Sargeant up and said that he needs a bit more time to improve in Williams, the fact that he's cost his team well over $4 million in repair costs goes to show that his value might have been overpriced a bit, and that surely prompts Williams to think about a potential replacement for 2024. Elaborating on this matter, James Vowles said that the team is not immune to all the talks that have been circulating around Sargeant's future, and even he is not 100% sure that the USA native will continue his time with Williams next year. The Williams team principal has gone on to say, "I suspect the decision will be brought to the end of the season. I think we've already committed to the direction of travel we're in. He has targets to that, and it'd be wrong to go against that decision point." So, end of the year. I think from him, the frustration has been there for many months actually. He went into Bahrain, probably the worst thing that can happen. He went into Bahrain, overlapped with Lando in terms of Q1, and he thought perhaps the challenge in front of him may not be as significant as it really is. What you then saw after that time, Alex has grown, I think, across this season, and the gap started to grow as you found a driver that's now frustrated his normal tools aren't producing the quality of lap time that was there previously. He knows how to win. He's won in Formula 3, won in Formula 2, but applying that now in Formula 1 and then not achieving results creates more and more frustration. With this in mind, Williams will have a lot to think about because they have finally pushed the team in a certain direction, and that means they're going to want another solid driver next to Albon, who will be ready to push the Thai native to further limits and therefore bring the team closer to the midfield. The technical staff is sorted out, the development path has set sail, and all Williams has to do now is find a solid pair of drivers, a mission that is completed to 50%, and maybe exploit more performance from Sargeant in the remainder of 2023, but he has his fate in his own hands, and that's why the goal is loud and clear: score points or a replacement is on its way. I know that many of you feel like Lance Stroll is untouchable as long as his father is leading the team, but after the latest scandal in Qatar and after Aston Martin is now just 11 points ahead of McLaren, a fight they're poised to lose, the investors in the team have had enough with the current state of affairs in the Silverstone-based squad. Lawrence Stroll has been reportedly considering the sale of the team, mostly because his son can't produce the results he had planned for him, a scenario that, while seeming a bit bizarre, is definitely understandable from a father-son point of view. With Honda coming as an engine supplier for Aston Martin from 2026 onwards, there have been talks about Yuki Tsunoda potentially hopping in earlier next to Alonso if the reins of the team are sold to Aramco. While this decision would definitely be better, even with Lawrence at the helm of the team, it's safe to assume that, as a businessman, the thought of him firing his son and putting the team in a more competitive window has crossed his mind more than once, but whether he'd be able to do it if his son underperforms in Austin, time will tell. Stroll's best result has actually been scored during a sprint event in Austria, and even though he will have 2 of those venues in the next 3 races, he's headed into them from a negative spiral, having crashed heavily in Singapore and his tantrum in Qatar, which puts additional pressure on him to prove that he's made out of F1 material. The gap to his teammate is also very vivid, as Lance sits on 47 points while Alonso has 183, along with 7 podium finishes. So the upcoming weekend will be the start of Stroll saving his career in Formula 1. Which of these drivers do you feel is under the biggest threat of getting fired? Let us know in the comments below.